Hey guys, today we're going to go over standard 2 of our Byzantine Empire unit. That's our unit 1. We're going to talk about the accomplishments of the Byzantine Empire. We've already in class gone over Justinian. I'll review him briefly and then we'll hit the others. I want to try and do it in 15 minutes. So hold on. Make sure you take some notes. This is your power standard. So for this standard, you're going to do the one pager. The rubric is on Canvas. If you open up the assignment, you'll see the rubric, and then the instructions are also in that assignment. So if you go to the assignment on Canvas for the Unit 1 Standard 2 one-pager, then you can see the rubric and the assignment requirements. Very similar to what we did before. Okay, let's talk about the accomplishments. This is the big standard. This is the one the county wants you to know well, right? So you've got to be able to identify the contributions of Justinian, Theodora, Cyril, Methodius, they go together, Belisarius, John of Damascus, and Anna Komnena. All right, you want to know why the Byzantine Empire's preservation of Rome and Roman culture was particularly important, and what were the most important architectural achievements of the Byzantine Empire. So here we go. Let's talk first. Oops, I think I went too fast. Let's talk first about Justinian. He becomes the emperor in 527. His uncle was the emperor before him. He was actually a commoner, but he was taken in by his uncle and then raised to be the next emperor of the Byzantine Empire. His real goal was that he wanted to reunite the entire empire, the whole Roman Empire again, and he got really close to doing that. His empire, if you look at it, at the height of the Byzantine Empire, that's when Justinian's ruling. That's when the darker pink colors. So he was able to reconquer Italy and northern Africa, part of Spain. And so the yellow part was the only part he wasn't able to reconquer. So he did a pretty good job of surrounding the Mediterranean Sea again. So this was the biggest that the Byzantine Empire will be. All right, there's a reading and then a Nearpod about Justinian. You can read more about him. I'm just going to skip over that. The three most important things he accomplished: he codified a set of laws. He combined the Roman Empire's laws. He built the Hagia Sophia, and he was able to reconquer most of the empire. So those are the big ones. I'm telling you that right now. So here's the ones you want to know, and you want to definitely include in your one-pager. He created a legal code. It's called the Code of Justinian. The real name for it's Corpus Juris Civilis, which means in Latin, body of civil law. So he had all these scholars come together from throughout the Roman Empire, East and West, and put all the laws together, all the court cases together, and even some training for some law students. He put those all together so they had one big legal code so that they would have consistent laws throughout the land. And that's how we do it in the United States today. So that code became the basis for our legal code. And really all of Western Europe's legal codes are based on Justinian. He was kind of the first one to do it. All right, and this just compares Justinian's code with American laws. For purposes of your test, you're not going to have to do it, so I'm going to skip over it. Let's make sure I can get this under 15. Okay, his next biggest accomplishment was building the Hagia Sophia. That is the church that you see pictured. This was a church that was dedicated to Christianity. Today, as you see it standing there in the corner, it actually has minarets, which are tall, slender towers that are associated with mosques. When the Muslims took it over, they changed this beautiful Christian cathedral into a beautiful Islamic mosque. And so at the time, it was the greatest church in Eastern Orthodox. It was a fantastic sight when people came to see it. It's still there today. You could go to Istanbul, Turkey, and visit the Hagia Sophia. It was a museum. Now it's a mosque. It's been reconverted back into a mosque in the last couple of weeks. All right, there's a video. I don't remember. Oh, it's just telling you how the domes were built. So in the Nearpod, you can go look at that. But I'm just going to skip over it for our purposes here. And this is a 3D tour. You can actually go into this Nearpod and take a look at the Hagia Sophia, see it from the inside. One thing to notice in the tour as I play around with it, up in the top, these big round circles, That is Arabic. Those would be lines from the Quran, just kind of like we would use Bible verses if we're a Christian, lines from the Quran. The Muslims only use the Arabic as decoration. They don't use pictures of Muhammad. There's no depictions of Muhammad, God, or anything like that. It's, just words from the holy book, their holy book, which is the Quran. Those wouldn't have been present when Justinian was emperor. They were added after the Muslims took over uh, Constantinople and renamed it Istanbul. They converted the Hagia Sophia to a mosque. Okay, so that's just a cool tour. All right, here's a picture of Justinian as the lawgiver, and you can see surrounded by his legal scholars. And so one thing to notice, this is a mosaic. Mosaics were very famously used in the Byzantine Empire and with the Muslims. And I don't know who gave which to whom. But one thing you notice is there's like a halo around Justinian. That is how they indicate that he is sacred, okay? That's like a halo, and so you know that he is a religious figure. If they had a picture of Jesus, you'd see the same thing, or Mary, Jesus' mother, you'd see the same thing. That just denotes it's a religious figure. It's like a halo. So that's what that picture is. And then Theodora, all right? So Justinian marries Theodora, and she's very controversial because she was an actress, kind of a showgirl, all right? Burlesque, like a burlesque dancer or something like that. He was not allowed to marry her, and his uncle, Justin, had to change the law to even permit him to marry somebody of low birth. He became, he was next in line to be on the throne. He couldn't marry someone of low birth, but his uncle changed the law for him, so he marries Theodora. She becomes his most trusted advisor, and she is like a co-ruler, and you can kind of see in the picture. She becomes the empress, and she becomes the most powerful woman in the empire, and she really kind of has a lot of say-so. People of higher birth are not very happy about this, but she seems to be a little bit smarter, a little bit more level-headed than Justinian. When there's a rebellion in the empire, Justinian's instincts are to run away, and Theodora says, no, you got to put that rebellion down. So he, puts the rebellion down and stays and keeps his rule. So she was very influential in the empire. She has her own accomplishments. Most important with Theodora is that she gets more rights for women. Okay, in the empire, which was very unusual for the time period, women could divorce if they weren't happy with their husbands. In some instances, they could own property in their own names. And so in Western Europe, you'll find that women couldn't own property. It only passed from male heir to male heir. She cracked down on prostitution and brothels and, bad treatment of women. As it says at the beginning, she helped him put down the rebellion. It's called the Nika Rebellion. Because Justinian was busy reconquering the empire, and because he was building great things like a wall around the city, and he's building the Hagia Sophia, that's really expensive. And so the taxes were high, and so people were really angry with him about the taxes being so high. So they rebelled. And again, she was the one who said, no, you got to put this down. After her, it would not be uncommon for women to rule with their husbands, and a couple women ruled outright in their own with their own authority. So women in the Byzantine Empire had more rights than most women in other places on earth at that point. Here's a picture of her and Justinian together. You can see lots of gold in there. It's indicating wealth. Now see, this time she has the halo around her head. Both Justinian and Theodora are religious figures in the Eastern Orthodox Church. We'll talk about that church in a later lesson. And this is just a little movie clip about Theodora that you can watch. Again, the big thing about Theodora you want to know is she got more rights for women. All right, the next guy is Belisarius. He is Justinian's general. He is the one, Justinian is in command of the empire. He's the emperor, but it's Belisarius who leads the troops to reconquer the empire. So that's the objective of Justinian, to bring back the glory of the Roman Empire. And so it's Belisarius who reconquers Northern Africa and Italy and brings back most of the empire under his control. With his help, Justinian will grow the empire by another 50%. Once he starts losing, though, and so he's not able to take down the Franks in Gaul or the Visigoths in Spain, Justinian gets mad at him, and basically they have a falling out, and that's the end of Belisarius's involvement. He also is the general who helps put down the Nika rebellion. So he leads the army to put down the rebels in the rebellion. And you should have read about that in the reading. So hopefully you've done your reading. Okay. All right, the next two guys you got to know are Cyril and Methodius. They go together. It's like peanut butter and jelly, so you're not going to have one without the other. These two guys are monks and missionaries, so they're traveling and spreading the mission, the message of Christianity. What is today Russia in parts of Eastern Europe were inhabited by what the Slavic people, they call them the Slavs. The Slavs didn't have any kind of written language, and so Cyril and Methodius went to try and teach the word of God, of Christianity, to the Slavic people. They were unable to read the Bible that Cyril and Methodius probably would have had it in Greek, the Greek Bible, and so they basically create an alphabet for the Slavs called the Cyrillic alphabet, after Cyril, right? The Cyrillic alphabet, and that it becomes the alphabet for the Slavs. Then they're able to translate the Bible into Cyrillic, and then the Slavs can read the Bible. So a lot of people in Russia and Eastern Europe will become Christians, and that's all thanks to Cyril and Methodius. So you've got to know that they were monks, they were missionaries, they're going out and spreading the word. And this will cause Eastern Orthodox Christianity to spread into Russia, and that'll become, for a long time, until the communists come in, that will be the religion of Russia. Oops, I'm having trouble with to move it to the next one. Okay, so Cyrillic alphabet for those two. And there's a video. You should go back and just flip through the Nearpod, watch the videos. It'll give you more information. Here is just kind of an examples of the Cyrillic alphabet. All right, next person you got to know, and include in your one pager all these people. Anna Komnena. Anna Komnena was the daughter of one of the emperors. Her father was Alexius Komnenos, and he was the emperor of the Byzantine Empire from 1081 to 1118. You're not going to have to know those dates, but that's later in the empire as it gets closer to falling. Okay, she wrote, she would have been educated because she was, a wealthy woman in the empire, daughter of the emperor. She wrote a book called the Alexiad, and that is a historical account of her father's rule. It was during her rule that the Crusaders came from Western Europe. We'll talk about them in the next unit, but they were Christians sent by the Pope to reconquer the Holy Land. And because the Byzantine Empire was a Christian empire, they would often just come through Constantinople and on their way to the Holy Land. And the Pope and then the head of the Eastern Orthodox Church were trying to get everybody back together. We'll talk about the breakup in the next lesson, but and so it was a partnership between the Christians in the West and the Christians in the East. But during the rule of Alexiad, the Crusaders decided to sack the city of Constantinople. So they did a lot of damage to Constantinople. They will weaken the empire because they attack it. And they see all these riches. They see the Hagia Sophia and all the riches of the Byzantine Empire, and they want it. And so they take a bunch of it from the empire and go back to Western Europe. They don't even go to the Holy Land on that crusade. Anna Komnena records this. So we have the tales of what happened with the Crusaders. And it's because she wrote this book. Of course, it's very pro her father and very anti-Western Crusaders. But again, we still have this account. So you can go read in the words of somebody who lived it. And so she's a historian, writer, and princess. Okay, that's Anna Komnena. All right, so that's the big figures, the big things that happened in the Byzantine Empire. So this is the empire as a whole, right? One of the things they did is they preserved the writings of the Greeks and Romans. That'll start the Renaissance when it's rediscovered. The Byzantines will take that back. They create a new kind of Christianity, which is Eastern Orthodox as